Alright. Is this working? This seems to be working. Yeah, okay. It was being a wiener for reasons I don't quite understand. So, now it should be not a wiener. I prefer it when it's not a wiener, is the main thing. Now, there I am. Hi! I don't know why I'm down here. I'm like slumped over. Anyway, Discord was trying to tell me that, like, there was no input. I was like, yeah, I'm deafened. Using your feature, you fucking idiot. Anyway, we got a Multiworld tonight instead of Borderlands. Ducky has a big migraine, and I was immediately like, well, I don't want to go into the Borderlands with just the three of us. So, Virtue, Waffle, and I all, like, simultaneously came up with the idea to do a multi-world out of fucking nowhere. So, there we go, there's the game. Anyway, what was I gonna do? I should probably fix up the multi-link. I was gonna do that, yeah. But yeah, in a few minutes we'll be starting. Sorry that this is not the usually scheduled content, but, you know. These things happen when you have a human brain, and the human brain decides to just say fuck you, so. There we go. Not everybody's live yet, but at any point during this stream, you can type in !multi and you can watch us all. Oh, I didn't know you could unpin it after a certain period of time. That's pretty cool. Well, anyway. I think that's literally everything I had to set up. I think I'm ready. Text client. Oh, text client, you know. Text client's connected. I checked to make sure the game works. So, that should be in. So, yeah. Now I'm kind of just chilling, I guess. Which isn't the worst thing to be. Let's move them over here. And we'll move... Where is she? There she is. We'll move Virtue over here. Everyone else's should be muted. Yes. Cool. I just did a new thing too, so now stuff like this at the bottom of the screen will take less time to fuck with. Because... normally, so I have these pronoun things, right? They aren't like text. Like, they aren't a font. I mean, they are. There's probably a way to do it, but I use a thing online called Death Generator, which you're just supposed to make like memes and shit with. But some of them you can do with a transparent background. So I've just made a bunch of pronoun cards for everybody I stream with. But I decided, wait, the PNGs are just gonna be in a folder regardless, so instead of bogging down a fuckload of shit into one folder in OBS, why don't I just put in like 7 slots of these and then replace them with whoever is streaming with me? So that's where I'm at. And that should take a lot less time to set up every time I stream with anybody, really. Fortunately, I don't really use them for the Legend of Dragoon playthrough. But yeah. So I guess I'll leave up this ambient little backdrop. I can't think of anything else that I need to set up. I have the track ready. It seems I'm starting with... Actually, I might as well just put it up here. I'm starting with Prison Lane, which I can't do a whole lot in without any Tails' items, without the booster. I don't know what Eggman stage that is. What Eggman stage is that? I have Iron Gate. I can do Iron Gate right away. I just can't get the upgrade in it. It says Prison Lane is in Logic. Am I thinking of a different stage? Oh, wait. No, Prison Lane is totally in Logic. That's Tails' first stage. I got confused. Route 280, which I can speed through. In this seed, I took out the Knuckles and Rouge 100 ring missions because I figured the 20 ring rule in the new build of Sonic Adventure 2 AP would make that easier to deal with. But, I mean, it does make it easier to deal with, but, like, it's still really fucking annoying, so I just took it away. Because last time I did a multi-world with those, I didn't really have fun doing those, so I decided to just take them out. I also took out the kart race minigames, not because I don't have fun doing them, and not because they're, like, not funny to do, just because they are too inconsistent, is my main problem with them. And I can do Aquatic Mine, our favorite. Everyone loves Aquatic Mine. Oh, actually, I can't do Aquatic Mine. I can get the upgrade in Aquatic Mine, technically. But I can't do Aquatic Mine itself. I mean, even then, like, technically I might be able to do Aquatic Mine. Sometimes Aquatic Mine and Rouge's stage, Security Hall can be done if you're lucky. If all of the emerald spawns just spawn in places where you don't have to dig or anything for them, then you can just fucking get those. Very cool stuff. I love running this shitty little game in Archipelago. I'm gonna go on Tumblr and tumble that I'm live. Tumblr makes me feel like such a fucking boomer. I, like, don't know what the fuck I'm doing at any given point. Let's see. Well, I'd love to be able to type, is the one thing, you know? So. There we go. HTTPS. Twitch.tv. Hitting go live, see you soon. Cool. Hi, Kimmy. How's it going? What was I gonna say? What was I gonna do? I'm going live. I'm playing SA2. I'm doing Cannon's Core. There's nothing really very special about my seed, but every seed is special. Ha 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 ha. Virtue is playing Timespinner, and Waffle is playing Timespinner twice. Cool. I thought there was a thing where, like, people can see you, like, see your stream on Twitch, or on Twitch. Wow, on Tumblr. Doing. Here we go. Cool. Okay. That's still pinned, so that's good. I'll put the tracker up here, Chatterino up here. I think that's enough things to stress out about. Just on the screen at once. I think I got quite enough. But yeah, I'm excited to get back into Sonic Adventure 2 again. Even though it's like the 5 millionth time. I don't know why I'm excited to play it again. I just am. Pokemon. Pokemon. Bum, bum, bum. If I Freaky Friday with a sloth, I think they would just like, I think they'd just be fucking miserable. Let me see all of my shitty fucking game modes. Let me see them. I've got so many funny fucking game modes. You have no fucking clue. Wah, 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 wah. It's kind of scary that when you use Chatterino, like, there's this, it shows, like, if they're offline, if you hover over the chat's name of whoever it is, like, it'll show what their stream title is. And then it just made me realize, like, what if as, like, for a test, you put in something you put in something dumb, like, fucking, like, Penetrators Deluxe, and some X-rated fucking video game is your stream category. Like some porn game or something. Well, I guess there aren't really any porn games that I'm aware of that are allowed on Twitch. I think those are pretty like strictly banned, aren't they? Which is a fucking sin. But oh well. What's the point of having 18 plus content if you can't play porn games? Fucking foul. So it looks like I need 54 emblems to get to Cannon's Core of the Seed. Like I said, I start with Prison Lane. Lost Colony. That's LC. Yeah, I can't do that without Jet Engine.
Fuck!
Oh, that scooped me. Hi, Hardcover. I wasn't expecting a scream. I think I literally used that command earlier. Like, I don't know why it was like... At all times, I should just be expecting people to use my sounds. The first one that genuinely scared me was this one.
Alive! That's from the live album.
Because I forgot I set that one up. And, like... I forgot I set it up. And then I was playing Lord of the Rings: The Third Age and, like, talking about some shit. I was in the middle of trying to pretend I'm funny. and then I just hear fucking alive, like, and I thought it was someone outside because I heard people like fucking making noise like earlier that day or like the day before or something like that, like outside my apartment. So I was like, oh, that's it. This is the one day I wasn't super cautious. I didn't look at how long it took to select Wario, and now Wario is outside my window and he is screaming. Look how much longer it takes to select Wario. I don't know why I put that one in. There's some commands where I'm like, why did you even put this in? Nobody's like ever going to use this outside of the context of random soundbite. Or I guess people use it as like, they're like, what the fuck is this? And they use it and they're like, oh, that's what it does. That was fucking, that was so good. It just played the entirety of fucking, it looks a little better this way when I move things just out of the way. We have parts of that now. I finally spliced it. I think this one's Ducky's new command.
I like to get in the way. I do it every day.
Oh, I don't like the imagery of those two characters in that context. Yo, about me act up. I'd like to get in the way. Yours was this one.
You gonna make me act up. You gonna make me do something I'm gonna regret.
You're gonna make me act up. I'd like to get in the way.
I like to get in the way.
See?
I do it every day.
You're about to make me do something I'm gonna regret. You wanna get a shot of us? Well, I'm standing in the way. I think Virtue's eating dinner, so I'm still just waiting a bit.
I knew that. I was testing you.
Oh, did you know that? That's creepy that you knew that. That's very strange. Why would you already know that? That's kind of fucked up, hardcover. That's kind of fucked up. Well, I guess. I guess. I don't have proof that you are a wasp. I just have proof that someone could speculate you to be a wasp. Which basically means I have nothing on you. But if you're a wasp, I'm gonna figure it out one of these days. What else is fun? For those who don't know, I deleted my Twitter. I'm very excited about that. So if you want updates, either join the Randomrings Dork congregation, which you can find in the About section, or you can follow me on Tumblr, because that's basically where I post all my stream updates and shit now. I deleted my Twitter. It's gone. I mean, it might still be there, I don't know. And there's like a 30-day grace period if you want to come back. But like, it's gone, Waffle. Waffle, it's gone! All my tweets gone!
Oh, yeah. I tried to tag you in my Go Live tweet.
I'm so sorry. I remain elusive.
Oh, hey, hardcover. How's it going?
We're trying to figure out whether or not they're a wasp. They said they knew
I
that...
get in the way to move things out of the way.
Okay, well see, a wasp wouldn't be able to do that, so... Anyway. Verdict's still out on whether or not hardcover is a wasp. I think the webcam thing on their stream is like a ruse, you know what I mean?
Possibly.
Like it's like a really good human VTuber model.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought. I had a really big burger.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be hungry for like ever. It was so much food. It was some local place. The whole thing was like 10. The whole thing was like $13 for like way too much food. Hi, Julia. Was promised a suffering Aiden tonight. What's all this about not Borderlands? Yeah, we talked about that in the thread, and I didn't really talk about it in the Discord, like the general chat, so I probably should have talked about it. Ducky has a big migraine, like a really, really bad one. So she said she's gonna bail. And I was immediately like, well, I don't want to do it if one of us is gone. I don't want to do Borderlands. And literally, like, Waffle and Virtue and myself were all immediately like Wonder Twins, fucking Wonder Triplets. Like, what if we did a multi-world, just the three of us? So here we are, instead of me suffering Borderlands. What's all this about not Borderlands? Absurd. I was gonna put in not Borderlands Multiworld.
Mama Luigi?
But like, yeah, I hope she's okay. I think she's probably asleep right now. She can just nap like a normal person that needs rest. I can't do that shit.
Well, I got the memo this time, and now I have Timespinner Tuesday in my stream title.
Ah. I didn't get the memo. Am I also supposed to have a stream title that is Tuesdays again?
No, but you all gave me shit last one time when I didn't.
Here. Not Borderlands Tuesday. In it. There. Yeah, it's Sonic Adventure Tuesday over here in my neck of the woods.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm gonna get my stream up and running now. No. To get on the right thing, we do that. Wah.
Yeah?
They can't hear me. Oh.
What the fuck? That's strange.
Huh? No. I mean,
you did that on purpose.
my stream can't hear me. Or you.
My brain. Don't worry about it.
I'm worrying about everything, but not because you. Not because of you.
No. Stop. Stop. There we go. Oh my gosh.
It is indeed Sonic Adventure Tuesday. Oh, I got a fuck you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Damn. That's how the Sonic Adventure 2 theme goes.
Nya.
Yeah.
Also, once I'm in, I gotta make sure that my game volume is much quieter because it's way too loud.
Is this your first Timespinner Multiworld?
It is indeed.
Oh,
But I've done,
cool.
But I've done 2 other Timespinner randos, so I'm good on that. I've gotten used to the randomizer itself. It's just, well, I'm trying to turn down the I'm gonna turn down the game volume. So.
Discord audio, cook 'em up a bit. Ba-da-da-da.
What?
I was reading your chat.
Death Link?
Don't worry about that. It does that.
Okay. I was like, I'm sure I turned it off.
I thought about doing Timespinner as well, but I didn't want to like take away Ducky Can't Do Borderlands 2 and also be like, we're gonna do the Timespinner Multiworld you've been pining for fucking months without you. So I was like, I feel like doing Sonic Adventure 2 anyway. I thought about it though.
Oh, nice! I got started with another orb.
Ooh. Alright. Well, I'm ready to start whenever.
Yeah, I'm ready as well.
I've already started, sorry.
Okay.
What the fuck? Ah! Okay, 3, 2, 1, go, I guess.
Yeah.
I thought I came in late and then you all were about to start and then I did that and like, oh wait, shit.
The multiworld
hold.
is never late, nor does it start early. It starts precisely when it decides to, or whatever.
I was gonna
I never
change my
get the
Mayoff skin.
Shows us some of those new skips. You mean the ones that I fucked up last night horrifically? Well, I was like, look at the new skips I learned. Does like maybe 2 of them right.
They did not look easy, so it made sense.
Yeah. I'm not like any pause buffering shit in any game. I don't know how to do that shit, so I'm like pretty proud of myself of the Tails one. The Green Forest one will come in handy, for sure. I wish I could do the real Final Rush one, like not the 2 that I showed and couldn't do right. The one where you just bend gravity with the camera is so fucking cool.
Oh, my wheel. Okay.
On which one?
On Waffle.
Ah.
And that one has unchained keys, so we will keep going left then.
Yeah. Game audio is going down a whole bunch. 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, geez, yeah. What are you doing at freaking... Oh, that's why the game volume. Apparently, it does not save the, Yeah, apparently it does not save the audio between the regular and the, Oh yeah, Discord audio is really quiet. Hold on.
That's crazy, because I'm like always really loud and compressed to shit.
Quiet. Just leave it to me.
No, and that's why I had it down really low, but
Well,
it's probably because last week we were like yelling about a whole bunch of stuff, so...
what can I say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Soup's gonna start with neurotoxin. Not that
Actually,
it really matters.
no, that is a problem. Because I have not cast my starting spell for Mom yet.
Oh no!
Shit!
Oh shit! I got my got my celestial sash already.
That's pretty good. That's very good.
No, it's very good for starting.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, how am I going to kill Doggo?
I've already unlocked. Oh, I can only go that far though. Right.
This
Whatever.
might have been a mistake.
Oh yeah, hardcover is also into audio, like, so they probably know more about shit than me.
I have screwed up.
Oh.
What happened?
I have gone to the left in an inverted seed.
Oh.
Canterin is on, so I'm trapped here. And Lake Serene is drained, which puts a late game enemy at the bottom of the lake instead.
Oh.
Oh, that's not good.
Hey, I have a wheel in both of them.
Oh, now you have your other wheel.
Yep, okay. We're dead. We're gonna try the other game then.
I'm picking up a signal from the emerald.
Hold on.
That's the fastest I've ever switched games in a 2 seed run.
Jesus Christ.
Well, in any case, I've already got. Since I already have my up dash, it's gonna be kind of fun because I basically have the best movement now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And giant emblem.
I will.
Of course, I've already bumped my head like 3 or 4 times. It's like,
Damn, can't imagine.
Double ice minus start from Mom. Oh, also I can't cast my spell, so I'm just gonna sit here for a bit.
Jesus.
really glad I didn't decide to try this on Nightmare.
Yeah. I still haven't done Nightmare. Like, vanilla.
Yeah, same. Same.
Damn.
You really don't have to. Like,
Oh, I know.
HP cap like kind of does the same thing but better. So, if you want a
That makes
challenge,
sense.
I would look at that instead.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, ooh. Light shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the reason I learned those skips the other day was because I was in a Multiworld and was doing Sonic Adventure 2, and I had Sonic's Mystic Melody and nothing else. Like, for most of the seed. Speaking of, there's the Mystic Melody.
Wait, I have wheel. I can get this.
Lock on to Eggman when you get next to him or behind him. My power's failing.
Oh, having issues with the Eggman.
I'm gonna pick that up for the hint point. Ah, okay.
You need better orbs.
Ah, it's fine. I don't need orbs at all.
Yeah. Fuck it. It's called Timespinner, not Orb Spinner.
Yeah, I've got the wheel. I've got all I need.
Watch out for Eggman's special attack. It's
Okay, first boss down.
move quickly
Sick.
to avoid it.
And an emblem.
I do like those around here. That's the kind of thing I'm into these days.
I can't lose to
I did it.
Alright.
Who even bothers with orbs and Timespinner, really? I don't know. It's gonna be me.
Orbs. Orbs.
This game.
I mean, I ponder them or whatever. 3 blaze stages. Let's fucking go.
Okay.
Including Final Rush if I'm desperate.
Attention all units. Suspect seen heading south. Block all major roads and capture the suspect.
Another emblem.
Jesus, I'm gonna get to Gate 3, like, soon. Like, within the first hour of the multi-world. That's sick as fuck. I'll check when I get back to the map how many emblems that actually is. The first gate is just 3, usually, or something around there.
Alright. First boss is Barn de Groth, and I only have ice.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Rip.
Oh, we're fucking Barney.
Oh, well,
Alright.
Soup has a tablet now. Excellent. Enjoy it. What you got? Oh, you not give me anything? No.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, no, I gave you Max Aura. Yeah, something.
It's something. You need aura to do things,
Another emblem.
as in life.
Give me. Oh, I can't. Oh. That's annoying.
Yeah, I have trap items in my inventory. That's just how they're implemented.
Lovely. I'm hoping to find that fucking Pong trap. I have not got a Pong trap since it was implemented. I'm pissed about it. So I'm hoping this is the one.
You have it enabled?
Yes, I have. For this seed, there are only 2 traps enabled. Oma trap and Pong.
Oh, hold on.
And then, like, what's the percentage at?
It's not that high. I'm not that desperate. But also, like, I kind of want to see.
Star. That'll help a little bit.
Who just gave me like 4 things? Holy shit.
I did the room above the library.
Oh, okay.
So that was 6 checks in a row.
I was like, quick checks and Timespinner?
Yep,
there a
it only
fourth
happens
player?
like what? It happens what, like 3 times
Throughout the entire game, yeah?
in the entire freaking game? Yeah.
All right.
There it
Sounds
is.
alright.
And another one.
Another one.
And
Oh, there we
another
go.
one. And another one.
You're smart.
And
You're loyal.
Finally beat Varney.
Oh, thank
I
goodness.
have a key card.
Yeah.
All it takes is a
Oh
little
wait, I think I'm BK'd.
Really?
select a stage.
Yeah, because I don't have a warp out, and I don't have any key cards.
I just sent you the B key card, but if you have specific key cards, that doesn't help you.
I don't even have D. Yes, I have specific key cards
Boo.
Okay.
Yes.
for the reason of randomizer. And now I see in Multiworld, it's probably better not to.
I always
Depends
turn
on
mine
what you
off.
want.
Yeah, it depends on
I
what you
think
want.
it's better.
Yes.
I turn them off. That's because I'm a baby, and Timespinner. I love running Timespinner. I need to stress this, but it like stresses me out. Not as much as like Pokemon Blue, obviously. Few things stress me as much.
There's
as
your
There's
Pokemon
D.
Blue.
Thank you. Oof. I figured it would have to be somewhere near the beginning of someone's thing.
Mhm.
Hell yeah.
Tier 1 for me.
Ooh. Something. Oh yeah, I forgot that's also D.
I've got this. Yes. All right.
My audio keeps bugging out. How so?
Can't complain.
Oof, another soup trap. Rip.
Select a
It's fine, they just floated up into the walls.
Anyway.
My own water mask.
Ooh, nice. Love finding water mask early, genuinely. Like, it's very good.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, jump. Ha!
Little bit of.
I remembered! Oh yeah, I have B. I can do this.
Nothing I can sell to buy warp shards.
I have B, but that's it.
I guess I'm buying a warp shard.
No.
I need to clip that. That's not supposed to happen.
What happened? Oh, I don't have C yet.
I picked up bombardment minus plus.
Wait, what?
It had both.
What is that?
It's both. That's a bug.
What does that like end up equaling? Is it just normal?
I don't know.
I guess
It looks like
find
it's
out.
plus based on the damage amount.
Really? Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
but I have
Hell yeah.
bombardment minus plus. All right.
Enjoy some sand. Oh no, C yet. Damn.
I learn something new every day. Even if it's not
Weird.
supposed to happen at all.
And another
Picked up
emblem.
the skip.
Did I forget to grab this download? I think I did.
I do not have the elevator yet. Okay. Wait, and how do I get there? Oh, right. I forgot about here. There it is.
Soup is BK'd. So why am I getting lagged?
I haven't found a single other weapon at all. Which is weird.
Can't complain.
Oh, someone sent me Plasma Plus on this one. All right,
Oh.
that'll help.
That
Hell
will
yeah.
help.
Also, yeah, now my iron orb is saying it's minus plus. Oh, wait, I can also get up here. Alright, I was not trapped before.
I think I'm BK'd again. Lovely. Hold on. Alright.
Now witness my power. Take this.
I'm about to get my shit rocked by Honey the Cat right now.
Witness my power.
Because I don't have the elevator card, so I can't take them.
Do you have wheel or spindle?
Neither.
Okay.
And because I'm now at the fully blocked military hangar.
Witness my power. Take this.
Alright, let's see. What is the next thing?
Now witness my
Oh, there you are,
power.
you bitch.
Take this.
I could request. Actually, what's the pyramids item called again?
Twin pyramid key.
I must protect
Are you?
Master
Now
Emerald.
give
That sucks.
Is it in your own world?
Yep. Castle
Oh.
basement secret pedestal.
Okay, so you have to do a vanilla time travel. So you're BK'd until you get wheel and spindle.
Wheel and spindle. Oh my god.
Yeah, you have to do vanilla time travel.
Oh.
Probably don't have enough hint points left.
Nope. I don't. Because I thought, oh, the keys would be the best thing. No. Oh, right, because it's castle basement,
Uh-huh.
which means it's the past version. That's cruel.
That's cool.
So it's not even a keycard issue now because I do have D. So it wouldn't. So it didn't even matter. So it didn't even matter because. Yeah, I mean 7 more, and I don't have any more checks.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Well, I'll try my
so
hardest.
The only two things that could help are either the wheel and spindle, or the elevator key to see if I have one of them there.
Or security keycard A would get you into Zarian Cave.
Right.
So I'm gonna try and do Canter now. Because my other option is Ravenlord. So let's see Cantering. Do I have a knot? This is kind of free? No, it is not free.
Oh no.
Things in life are. Oh, fucking expletives.
Thank you for censoring yourself.
This is a PG-13 stream, right?
Right, exactly.
So you get one F-bomb, and you just used it there.
Cunts.
How much HP does Canterin have?
I mean, that depends on if it's scaled or not.
It is scaled, because playing with unscaled bosses is not a smart idea.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know.
Because we're dealing 4 damage a turn here.
Oh, jeez. Oh, yeah, that's the one with you started with ice, isn't it?
No, I'm on the other one, which is Iron Orb minus.
Oh!
We're safe. It's Ifrit, so he can't hurt me. But I'm just gonna be here a while. Wait! No, this is the one that I have unchained keys on. No. If that, I can warp out of here.
Oh.
Here we go.
I'm trying my hardest over here.
I don't know, I'm going to go and...
Too easy for me.
New text. Okay, mode. Not Arial. Ew.
You say Harry all?
No, Arial, like the font.
Oh. I don't know which one's grosser, a Harry all command or Arial font. I mean, some people like that sort of thing, so I guess no judgy. Just everything being Harry. On everyone.
Anyway.
Now I'm kind of working on the opposite.
I see. When's your appointment? Next week?
Yep, Tuesday.
Tuesday. Cool.
BK mode enabled. Oh, I probably shouldn't do it like that.
Bar gear?
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Ultimate victory.
Italian Shadow. It's a me, the ultimate life form. Oh fuck, I got my own bounce bracelet. Damn it. I can't do the cool final rush skips now. I mean, I could. It'd just be a fucking waste of energy.
Oh, I have the Eternal Code at least. That's something.
So this will be an important item. My own light wall. Okay.
Well, at the very least, I can still go and level up a bit.
Keycard B for soup. But that should be on specific keycards, so that doesn't help.
Oh yeah, I don't know the elevator keycard yet. Oh. Nope, that's useless. Okay. Deadly neurotoxin.
Yes.
That's flooded. All right.
Oh, cool. Actually, I like the Colossal Hammer. It's pretty nice. When it can hit.
Fuck.
Oh, that's right. This is not the place. Woo! I like Blood Orb.
Ooh, 3.
Damn it. Shit.
Oh god, nosages must grind rail.
Yes.
Hold on. Well, there's a spindle.
There you go. So you just need your wheel.
Yeah.
That gets you out of BK.
Yep.
And there's another spindle for me.
That's good at least. Something, you know.
Soup has 4 Timespinner pieces now.
That's funny.
Damn. Oh, Jesus. Oh, I'm dying normally. I'm not even trying to skip. I'm just dying. It's silly. Actually, I don't remember what the fuck. Oh, this isn't even the place anyway. Fucking Christ. I keep glitching through, like, where the platform starts the grind rail recently. I don't know why that keeps happening. It's a very new thing. And it's not just, like, in the Steam version either. It's, like, not an AP glitch. It just is something that happens to me now.
Damn.
It's very strange. Fuck. Okay, that was ineptitude. That was not me. I mean, that was me. That's what I meant to say. I think I missed the fucking upgrade check. Or I just forgot where it is again. That's very possible.
Oh damn, I have like no aura.
Oh. Oh god, the hot chips during a multi-world even?
Oh, of course. Also, I'm gonna put BK mode on the bottom here. Indeed.
My
Hello,
BK mode is
Jay-Z.
hot chips.
Hello, Jay-Z. Yes, it is hot chips time. Wah! And don't worry, I am smart. I have it on a... Ooh, filigree tea. Okay.
That was
Hello, Jay-Z. How are you doing? Aside from, gremlin-y. Aside from being very, you know what you are. You're a goof. Being a gremlin... Being a gremlin and making me eat them hot chips for no reason other than you enjoy my pain!
Wow.
It's okay.
Go.
Unbelievable.
That's just how it is. Anyway. Ow. No. Ow. Pain number 1 is over.
Sounds great.
No. Wow. Oh, you do it for the ASMR crunch?
Sure. That's what
Sure.
they all say.
Not at all for
Whatever.
the pain you're causing me. No, not at all, Jay-Z. Meow. Ah.
Oh. Where the fuck's the upgrade?
Ow. Yes, anyway, I'm doing this little bounce back and forth kill an easy thing because I am currently unable to do anything.
Try grinding. All right.
Oh, I already have one of those and it sucks.
So-so.
I wonder how many hit points I have.
Oh!
I'm gonna save that for a bit because I don't need anything right this moment.
Yeah, I prefer that to the Iron Hammer. Because unlike the Iron Hammer, it hits everything in its path, whereas the Iron Hammer doesn't hit right in front of you.
We love things that hit everything in its path here.
Well. Wow. Oh yeah, because I have the spindle. I can see the past, even if I can't go there.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at my map. I'm like, oh, on my map I can see the past because I have the spindle. I just can't go anywhere in the past because I don't have the wheel.
Oh, weird. Nothing's lit up, right? If you
No.
hold down. Okay, good.
Already, no, that was one of the first things I checked. I mean, that's basically how I've been doing this. I'm like, oh, sweet, I have my vertical dash. This will be easy. Oh. It'll be easy mode. No, not quite. Not even gonna bother. So many visors. Security vest? Nope. I have Eternal Coat, so that's probably not gonna get beaten for a while.
It will never get beaten.
Oh, Eternal Coat's the most.
Yeah, that's the best armor.
Oh,
Body armor.
A fan blowing into the mic or something?
That's probably my actual fan.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, I just had to. Thank you for telling me. No, I just had to re-angle my. There it is.
There you go.
All right, I'm going. Let me turn off BK mode.
The bright side, chat, is if her fan sounded like something else, and it was equally that loud, it'd be way more concerning.
So yes, the good news is that means I can just. I'm literally in the right spot for it too. I just go up here, go wee, and say hello, wheel. Vanilla time skip or time dump.
Vanilla.
Yeah, no, it was my my fan because it's warm. I can no longer have it my way. Ironically, that's the opposite of how it is, because. Oh, do I not get anything from her? So I got that. Okay, cutscene time here. Oh, here it is. Light wall. Well, I've got. Wait, I don't need light wall. I already have my filigree. Is it?
Sash.
Sash, right?
We are also doing vanilla time travel in soup.
Ah. Oh. What did I send? I got a max. Oh, I'm sorry for the chaos trap.
It's fine. I was right on the save point.
I'm so
That's
used
funny.
to hearing that word in every other fucking Sonic game in existence that I legit, like, my eyes widened for a second, like, wait a minute, what the fuck is that? What's happening to me?
Umber Orb is not minus.
Yosh!
Wait, hold on.
That was too close.
Ooh,
There's that.
economizer ring?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
good. Yeah. I'm gonna go
Fuck.
take a quick bathroom break, but I just want to reiterate that I'm already at the 4th fucking gate. It's
By the way,
been an
thank you.
hour.
Thank you for
Oh,
that
no, I've been
antidote earlier.
We've been doing the multi-world for less than an hour, actually. I'm already at gate 4. That's fucking insane. All right.
Oh,
I'm
sorry for
gonna-
the beat.
I will be back.
Okay.
Okay. Right, where? Oh, it's in the castle basement. Okay.
And more beacon.
Up. Alright, boss time. Let's go. Oh, mini boss. Not really a whole boss.
Oh wait, I don't have Sash on this save. Ooh,
Huh.
crown.
Empire Crown, nice. Oh, wait. Time to cheese it.
Don't have key card for that one.
Don't hit it! I need a fire. Hit it. Kill with fire!
You
May, if you are...
cheating?
No. I'm not cheating! Thank you!
Certainly sounds like you're doing crimes with Mayef.
It's not technically a logic break because Mayef can breathe fire.
No, it is a logic break.
It is a logic break?
Yes, I don't care, but that is not considered in logic.
That's kind of silly, considering.
It's fine, Llama's not here to yell at you.
Lab coat? Help. Oh, librarian robe? Nope. Oh wait, that's right. Robes, I'm not gonna find anything better. Like the hats
Yes.
I'm looking for.
My
Oh,
eternal
there's
coat
your
is the other
eternal
one.
coat. Yeah, not the one you're on right now. Oh. Welcome back. Alright,
Thank you.
I forgot I have...
My back. There we go.
Gear 3.
Ah, nice.
Actually, before I do this, here's my Twin Pyramid key on this game.
Intruder alert. Assume level 1 defense formation.
Underwater right chest. Okay. I can get that.
Level 1 security door breach. Emergency formation. Intercept intruder.
I know I say it every single seed since they implemented it, and I've tried it. I fucking love music randomizer. It's the
Door breach. Level 2.
Sonic Windy Valley theme from Adventure 1. But it's Iron Gate.
Damn it.
What is eating my CPU?
Sorry, I wanted a little snack after the big burger I had earlier. Decided to chomp on a little CPU, little processing power.
Alright. Right before the big bird. Do the big bird. Big bird.
Security door breach. Intruder has breached sections 3 through 8. Get him.
Big Bird's pretty cool. I'd hang out with Big Bird.
I wouldn't hang out with this one.
Why not?
Level 4 security door breach.
Maybe the fact that he's trying to kill me?
Nah. No, so here's the thing. The Big Bird in Timespinner is fighting you because you infiltrated the bird's space. If it were a more isolated scenario where the bird was invited to hang out with you and you both went to like a party or something, like that'd be a whole different scenario.
There we
Would you
go.
hang out with the bird then?
Probably not.
Wow. Showing your true colors on during the multi-world. See how it is.
Yep.
Wow.
Take your damn 20 rings and shut up. Also
Can't be
take a
silence on my love for big birds.
You like big birds and you cannot lie?
You know, you other herrings can't deny.
Look for the missile.
Unfortunately, I did not get anything from that, so making that trip was not the best. Trendy jacket. I'm just curious. That's pretty damn bad.
That wasn't so difficult.
I actually don't see what.
This game.
I don't know why there's no Cheveux plume. I mean, I don't have anything else, so.
Intruder alert. Assume level 1 defense formation. Level 1 security door breach. Emergency formation. Intercept intruder.
No rings. There we go.
What happened to the 20 rings I just sent you? Jeez.
That was in the last stage.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2 isn't really great for junk items like Zelda and Timespinner are, and like Pokemon and shit, where you can, you know, keep them.
Yeah, I know. Running. Oh.
Is this even randomized?
How many times have you gotten the correct boss?
I think that's only the first time.
Oh, okay.
Level 3 security door breach. Intruder has breached sections 3 through 8. Get him.
There's no real punchline to this or anything. What happened?
Select the stage.
I heard a sharp meow.
Level 1 defense
Oh, I just meow. That's it. That's all I do.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought it was in response to something frightening.
Nope.
That's good. I went to the local burger place, and the last time I've been there was like years before pandemic time. So I was like, I assumed that that 2020 just like wiped the place out, you know? But then I realized like, no, it's still alive. I went there today and went to pick up. There was like one of the employees' cars. Somebody pulled in after me, and no one fucking else. And this was like after school lets out and shit. So like, huh? I literally texted another friend of mine and was like, I think this place turned into a drug front. There's like no one here.
Save. Yeah.
Level 3 secured door breach. Intruder has breached sections 3 through 8. Get him.
Wow. Oh, damn it. I do not have my pendant, so I cannot just run through those things. Makes me sad.
Ooh. Gear 2 myself.
Sick.
Oh, oh, wee, oh, oops. Oh, cool. Absolutely useless. But at least I look cool now.
Sick.
Vanilla boss number 2 in a row, actually.
Oh. Oh.
Okay. Well, good news is it looks like I can get into the castle basement, so should be able to get my my twin pyramid keys.
The castle basement.
In fact, in retrospect, I probably should have gone there first, since I know where the keys are.
And there's my key.
Me to my wife when she says, so you have your keys before you go out, right? And I'm like, of course, I have my keys. They're down here. I know where my keys are.
Down.
I picked up a Chow key and didn't realize. Speaking of keys, so I guess we're gonna go visit Chow World for a little bit.
Oh.
For no reason. I need to figure out how the Chow shit works and see, like, because I think it's different in AP, so where like it's actually feasible, but I don't know if it's feasible for like not an async. So, because if it's feasible for a sync, I kind of want to fucking do that shit just because it's funny.
Oh, pick nails.
Pick nails are good. It means I have to do more rouge checks, which I'm not like stoked about, but
Well, gives you longer time before PK.
oh, that's true too. I like more rouge stages than Honey the Cat stages. I mean, Knuckle State is. There
I don't
aren't
think
any good.
I was gonna say, I don't think you're gonna be BK'd anytime soon.
Nope, I am not going to be.
Aiden, because isn't like half your game open to you now?
I'm at gate 4. There are 5 gates.
Okay, more than that, yeah.
And I have a lot of items. And this isn't a game you easily get BK'd in anyway, so I'm, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be BK'd this seed.
Yep.
Also,
I'm
it's
not
not Emerald Hunt, so...
I have... All I'm missing is, key card C?
Hmm.
I think. Oh, A. A is the one I need.
Chow World, everybody. That was
I'm missing
Chow World,
C,
everybody.
too. I'm missing C as well, but I don't need C as much. Oh, jeez.
Technically, you don't need A.
I mean, yeah. All I need are the 5 Timespinner pieces and vertical movement, which I have, and is it these the basement ones? Not that one. Nope. So these are the guarded rooms, or these are the ramparts.
The ramparts.
Oh wait, when did Soup get gear 2? I just need Sash or Lightwall, and Soup is in Go mode.
Holy shit.
Damn.
Uh-huh.
Alright, what the... Oh, there's my hint, okay. I'm gonna keep going where I can, which is over here. Oh. Huh, there's iron.
And that's plus on this one.
Oh, nice!
It's gotta be close.
Alright, I have double jump again. Up and left. Oh, I can't go that way. Okay, I'm going straight for the thing. Going straight for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more rooms of checks. That's it.
Damn.
And then I'll have my twin pyramid key.
Yeah. Cool.
1.
Basement is flooded.
Ditto. First check it. Well.
Only one more left.
Huh, cool. And here it is!
Close.
Ah! Now I gotta just get the last gears, 2 of them. Alright, so I'm missing...
A secret pedestal. That's where it was. Okay.
All I need are 2 gears and...
Oh, just easy for me. Select the stage.
and to fight Nuvius. And that should be good. Wow.
What to do next? What to do? See that next. Better question. I probably have a shit ton of hint points now. What do I still need? Oh, okay. Hammer gloves and
Again, Jay-Z? Again? See, I knew it. I knew you were doing it for pain as well.
Third vanilla boss in a row?
What the fuck?
Yeah, what is going on here? Desolation
here?
Crash Site 2 in Waffle. I don't have Water Mask,
sorry.
so I can't fight the Maw.
Okay.
Can't get that yet.
I don't need it right away, but it is an item I need.
Ooh. Ooh. I will take that on number 3. Empire Orb.
Technically, I need Water Mask and Gas Mask for that to be in logic.
Okay. Like I said, don't rush, because I'm pretty set over here for now.
Sorry.
Wait.
Waffle, which one are you on right now?
Soup? There we go.
Okay. I was just curious. Okay, so you've got probably like 3 traps waiting for you on Waffle. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It's okay. I gotta go eat my hot chips now anyway.
Excuse
your
me,
soul
pain
scanner,
is
though.
waiting.
Very
Yes.
important.
Pain is waiting, courtesy of Jay-Z. 1 chip. Ow. Meow. Meow.
Support your local streamer by redeeming channel points.
Wait, how is this in logic?
What?
Oh, alright, that's how it's in logic. That's actually not that bad. Okay. I think Yarno changed that.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
Ow. Meow.
Yummy.
Flame Ring.
Flame Ring's good. It's not a go mode item, but it is fun, because that means I could use Shadow a little more.
I forgot how strong Empire Orb actually is.
Oh yeah. Everything is weak to punch.
Except for the puncher himself.
Yes.
Boss time.
Wait. Why
Holy
is that
frick.
Why is that check in logic and nothing else in Ilana's tower in logic? I can just fall from the top here.
Oh, it's okay. Not like I need.
Like, I understand the reasoning behind it, but... Wait, no, okay, that's correct. No, I can only get this bottom item here. Alright. Never mind. Logic is sound.
Thank you for bombardment. Ha! Boom. Ah, kill this ring, of course. Wow.
I think I'm gonna do another multi-world after I learn a new game for AP. That sounds like a fun thing to do. And I won't be doing Pokemon Blue, so it won't be as much of a fucking horrific disaster as last time.
I don't have a pink orb yet. Damn.
Has the power of pink.
Nope, I don't have any pink orbs. Can't do anything there yet. There, or I can't access there yet. Oh, apparently the birds aren't terribly weak to punch.
Correct.
Just like in real life. Believe me, I've tried.
I have headcanoned it that they don't like being controlled by the Empire.
Okay. I'm headcanoning that all birds in nonfiction and fiction are just resistant to punching.
You ever tried to punch a bird?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like,
Yep. Well, both of yours now have the soul scanner. Is it on this side? It is. So I gotta go this way first. Got it.
yeah, that's why flying type moves are good against fighting types.
Yep.
Because even like trained MMA artists are like, no, I concede. Fuck it. This bird's kicking my ass. I actually don't know too much about the world of MMA beyond, you know, UFC, which has gotten shittier.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, than it already was.
Now.
Yeah. And yeah, Amelia's not here because she's out at Pokemon. Our local game store does Pokemon on Tuesdays.
Oh, cool.
Okay, now that I'm doing this, I can talk to you and get some warp shards. Because I'm gonna need those now.
The ones that are too fast to punch, and the ones that are big enough to mess you up.
Yep.
I could probably take an Emperor Penguin.
Those are... Actually, yeah, those are neither. Well,
I could fuck that bitch up.
Emperor Penguin in the water will outswim you. Oh, bicycle ring.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I guess on average I would beat the fuck out of an Emperor Penguin, but in home terrain I'd be fucked.
Oh, not here.
This is like the fastest I've ever done the stage. All I gotta do is think about fighting birds with my fist. Motivates a bitch. I got an A rank, that's like crazy.
Oh yeah, 3 checks up here, nice.
Am I getting better at this game that I've multi-worlded like 14 times?
Nah.
Oh nah?
Just luck.
No,
No,
you're probably right. On the other hand, it's Sonic Adventure 2. A lot of people would argue that sometimes getting to the end of the stage is luck.
Hey, there's my water mask.
Anyway, Sonic 06 and AP win.
Oh, fucking no.
Hey, you don't have to run it.
I started watching that game a little and I'm like, what the fuck? Why does it look like it looks like Final Fantasy X on a fucking 1/10 budget.
Yeah, that game was weird.
Not sure It's saying that check is in logic.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I know why it says that check is in logic. That's a bug.
Oh.
First check in the ancient pyramid says it's in logic because I have the 5 Timespinner pieces.
Okay.
But I don't have any vertical movement. So I can't actually get through the lab. No, I can. Is that? Well, no, because I can't get... Is that in logic? No, because I can't... This is weird. Because I can't get to Elana. But if I could get to the ancient pyramid, it would be. Depending on where my warp is. Okay, that's...
Oh, I don't get an item from this one? I thought I got... whatever. Oh, because it's here. Well, you got large cannon on Eggman.
That's really good. That's technically not... I don't think that's a go mode item, but it is really... It's really good and opens up most of Eggman's shit.
Wait. Am I... I'm BK'd again.
Damn.
Okay, let me see what I need. I think I need the water mass. No, I need keycard A. Right?
Probably both.
Both,
I'd
yeah.
probably do water mask first, since that's like required to get to the moth.
Fair.
Oh no! Wait. Why can I warp to the pyramid? Oh, this one has Enter Sandman on, but not Unchained keys. Why did I make those random?
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
this is logic.
Oh, I need the elevator keycard. Because something someone hinted for is in there.
That'd be one of Waffles then, I think. I only hinted for the one thing that's in Waffles.
No, I just hinted for Sealed Cave Siren. So you can always just do hint.
No, your gas mask. That's what you hinted for.
Ah, there we go.
That's why.
Sealed Cave Sirens.
So
Oh
I'm gonna
yes,
hint
no,
for
that
those,
is okay.
yeah.
That is behind the elevator keycard. Right, I was
Yep.
thinking of the other one.
Yeah, because it's down.
Yep.
It's down from the library. Well, not the library, but the lab. Right, down from the lab. Do you need the gas mask, or are you good on that one?
Logically, yes. Let's see what boss is there. Actually, wait, can I? Wrong game.
It's waffles, not soups.
I have no vertical.
Okay, so it's not a critical thing, so I won't go for that. I will look for
What?
keycard A then. I'll hint for keycard A. Well, I have enough to hint 3 times, so I'll hint. Oh, security key.
Shadow Seal.
Underwater pedestal. Okay, so and what is it? Water mask.
Yep.
Aiden, you need to go to Green Forest 1.
I'm literally
Perfect.
there just by coincidence. I'm at the end of the stage.
Well, I need it in Green Forest 1, Gate 4.
That's fucking crazy. I'm literally like at the goal. It's doing the animation that I just beat it.
So I should be getting a thing soon.
Any second now.
There it is!
Complain.
That's
BK
crazy.
mode, no, BK mode does not need to be activated.
So fucking, hey, Aiden,
Holy
can you do me a favor? Got it.
Good thing I picked up some warp shards. Wait, I haven't used any warps yet. Heck.
Uh-huh.
Ah!
Actually, I'm gonna do
I
a
got-
hit real quick.
I got too greedy with my Shadow Seal. Oh, right. If I do this, right. Okay. Have I burned the vines?
Oh,
Fuck.
I have that.
Yes. Hang on, let me not beat the maw yet.
Oh, I don't have that. Shit.
Down. I'll just do this way.
Actually, how many more hit points do I have? Can I do another one? Because there's one more item. Oh wait, no. I'm gonna be obnoxious real quick.
Oops.
You're fine.
Oh no, because I already hinted for that. Huh. Nope. I just need to get to that stage, so I just need a fuckload of emblems and the booster in the Waffle world. And then I'm go mode. Because I have my own hammer gloves. Somewhere.
Nice.
I just haven't got to the stage that has it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, shit. Oh, fuck. I need the other item that Waffle has to get that anyway. That's gonna be a while anyway. I'm not worried about it right now.
And yeah, I need my gas mask.
All right.
Yeah.
Logically.
Logically.
And if I don't have it, I have to make a run in
Okay.
the stinky area. But
Yeah, that's fine.
Yikes.
Oh. Well,
again, it's all doable for me.
well, in that
without
case,
gas mask.
I'm going to hint. So I have one more. Is in Aiden's world as well.
I can. I'm gonna do one check real quick, and then I'll get that real quick. Actually, I'm gonna do a few
Okay.
checks, and then I'll get that real quick. It won't take me. That's a pretty hard mission, but it might not take me that long. We'll see. It'll be a few minutes, probably.
Oh, I can't. That's annoying.
All right.
Anyway, so I want to go with that one. Okay.
Can't
That one
complain.
there. There it is. Okay.
Route 284. Okay.
Select the stage.
I started that one actually at the beginning of the scene with the other missions, so I'm at 4th mission now.
Boy, wait for me.
But
Oh,
it's
right, the elevator key card.
The 4th mission is don't hit the walls in the kart racing parts. So
Oh.
I might beat it in one try. You might be fucked for a bit. You never know.
Understandable.
Why do I do this voluntarily? Anyway.
Hey everyone, it's Randomizer. Ah! Welcome to the Multiworld.
Welcome to the
Get fucked.
Multiworld.
Welcome to the Multiworld. Get fucked.
Get
Oh,
fucked.
there's my gas mask.
Yep.
Is that Archipelago's like slogan? Is it like underneath
Wel-
like the
Welcome
tagline?
to the Multiworld. Get fucked.
Welcome to the Multiworld. Get fucked.
Oh, I could have warped over here. Oh.
I must be getting.
Oh,
close.
even the blobs are weak to punch. Damn.
Everything.
Shit. Everything except for Empire armor, basically. Which is why the large birds are not weak to it.
See, it's narrative theming because at the beginning she's like, I'm gonna kick butt, and she does the fist animation, and then you fight Daddy, and his big thing is punching. It's all connected.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. Midichlorians? Anyway.
Eh.
Do I remember this skip?
No, because I don't have my, I don't
Kind
have
of.
a pendant yet.
Hey, there's something pink.
Did you find Tails?
Something pink.
I still don't have pink anything, right?
No, I just sent you Plasma Geyser.
Me.
Out of
Yes.
logic. No, that was to me. Never mind, sorry.
I was gonna say, I don't have pink yet. I can find out by going to past. Yep, not orange yet.
Mm. I hit a wall.
Oh, there's your bird statue, so you can stop chaos.
Uh, I also want to point out it's playing. I also want to point out that it's playing the You know the Amy stage with all the mirrors and it plays really scary music? That's what it's playing while I'm trying to avoid hitting these walls.
Oh, damn.
I must be getting closer.
Just that I point that
Okay,
out.
let's- Skip.
I do have the Gyre on. All right. Let's save before we do the Kobo fight. That's never bitten me in the ass before.
Ah. Mm-hmm. That was a good alert. Telling you, exclamation point fuck. It's good.
Oh.
Oh my god, I just hit a wall. Oh, I almost hit a wall. That was really fucking close. Nuts. Oh my god. Okay, so I don't give a shit about like superhero movies like that much at all. Sat just showed me the fucking trailer for the new Flash movie. Because I was in disbelief that they literally have Michael Keaton Batman in it.
Monkey gun!
He doesn't say monkey gun. He literally says fucking, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. I'm like, oh my god, fuck you.
Ooh, no an Oculus ring. All right.
Plus, as a non-binary person, I think we can all agree that no one wants to think about or see Ezra Miller anymore.
Yeah,
so, like,
fuck them.
They could have just rebooted like Batman or made like old man Batman.
You mean
Or
Batman
not
Beyond?
done anything. Or made Batman fucking Beyond. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would have been great.
They coulda, live action Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they already have Michael Keaton doing it. He's in the fucking trailer. So like, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying is they could have done Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, it would still be a DC EU movie, so it probably would have sucked, but
Oh, absolutely.
it'd be slightly more interesting to maybe think about watching than the
Oh,
Flash.
there's your Spindle.
Yo.
It's something.
Was that sound alert? I already forgot. My brain is nothing. I'm thinking about Michael Keaton and why he's not my dad in real life.
Gosh.
I know, can you imagine? Bliss.
Oh, I thought I picked up my own thing. No. Just happened to be timed just right. Oh, someone needs something right there. I'll be right there to get it. I don't know what it is, but it's literally right above where I am.
I found it.
Enjoy your...
Well, if you'll
Oh, it's
pardon
my
my
security
language,
here,
sir,
dude.
I'm being a real doofus.
Never mind.
Let's do the boss fight and then we'll kill the law.
Okay, I'm gonna find the last thing here, and then I'm gonna go to security key card A for... Oh, I can go right on to key card A right here and get like 18 checks. There's my elevator.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need that gas mask anytime soon?
Sure. I'm about to
Okay.
go kill the Maw and run through the gas anyways, so.
Okay, so let me, I'm almost to warp. I'll warp to where the elevator is. Go grab it real quick. Anything up here? No. Okay, so I just gotta go through here. Here, up. Present to here. Well,
Yeah, this is Destiny's Child from Sonic.
Alright. Here we go, elevator, let's go. Got another 3 rooms to go and I'll be there. Okay, now I have this warp. Almost there.
Alright,
No.
boss is dead.
Well, since I have to go all the way to the other end anyway, or I have to come back. I'm just gonna go all the way to the end, get your gas mask first, and then come back.
Let's see if I can
Oh,
get
I forgot about the
Aiden's
Batgirl
item
thing.
before.
Yeah. Oh, antidote. Picked up an antidote. Nice. Oh, there's no. I keep forgetting there's no chest in this section on the room. There you go. Gas mask.
Cool. Now I don't have to suffer here.
Yep. Yeah, that would be nice. Stuff leak it.
All right.
Ugh.
That's what
Okay, I
I
have
was
a
kind of hoping
question.
for.
I have a question, Waffle.
All it
Uh-huh.
takes is a little
Those the plant ones that extend out and in the past, which have the spiky launch. How do you not take damage from some of those?
Time stop or hit them above.
Oh, you can time stop and jump through them. Oh,
Ooh, I have the
I did
boost
not-
there.
You kill them and then time stop and go through the spikes.
I didn't realize you could go through the spikes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's your booster.
I'm so powerful.
I think that's because I think that's where I stopped playing my nightmare one because I could not figure out how to do it. And I kept dying to them.
Uh huh. And a bazooka?
Oh, that's good too. Shit, that's like all of Tails' shit. Weird that they were that close together, but good.
Oh, jeez. Oh, they do not take well to bombardment. That's weird. But they resist it? How dare. I got your shield now.
That's like the barrier from like
Oh! Ace.
yeah.
That's,
It's
okay.
nothing.
I've realized now.
I mean, hey, it could save me from like a nasty boo boo and a 100 ring mission. You have no idea.
Okay, I'm gonna go take everything that's in there. How many hint points do I have? Let's see. Hint. I have 29. I can only search for one more thing. Found. I've got everything. Okay. I've got everything that has been hinted for. Ah!
Ooh, raid skis.
Miss Benda, thank you. I don't know if you heard that because I'm not hearing that. Oh, it must not be, properties? Yeah, it just must not be, passed through. Well, thank you muchly for the raid, Miss Panda. Nya!
Hardcover
I-
randomly redeemed the bees command. You're... Virtue was like, oh, everybody can hear that. And then there was just like, bees!
Hold on, I gotta do. Oh wait, oh V is over there. Wait, there's not even a check in V, because I don't have my tablet. That explains it. Oh my
Go through my
freaking god!
mic? I don't think so. What do I do now? Too many hit points I have.
Hey, Ducky. Glad to hear you are vaguely alive.
All right, everybody release. Let's go to Borderlands.
Oh my.
God, I'm so pumped for Borderlands tonight. Too bad we're doing this multi-world while I'm in the mood for once. Oh well.
I still-
God
I
damn,
still
what a shame.
Don't have C. I still don't have C. That's unfortunate.
Oh, I only have 6 points. I was about to frivolously hint for things I don't need, but really want. But I'm missing melody, so I can't do that. Oh, I can do Metal Harper. Duh.
I don't have B or wait. I have B. I don't have C.
That's a doggy being sleepy.
I don't think I need C though, except for a couple checks. But yes, I have another I have another lovely gift redeemed from Jay-Z. Thank you for murdering my taste bud. Again!
Well,
And a redeem me, and a time redeem. Do I have is this thing still showing up? Probably not.
What?
I have to after everything I say for 5 minutes. Yeah.
Ah.
But the thing that I had set up to show timer on screen was on my last scene and is no longer there, So I've got to reinstate it at some point, But at least I have the timer on my stream deck, Woo woo! Yeah. Ew, ew. Yeah. I'm gonna hydrate. I will in just a moment, Oh, I don't have it. I do have A, Right.
Maybe I should hydrate too.
Oh damn. Blood orb isn't very strong right now.
Fuck!
Oh,
but I
but
redeemed it after I drank the rest of my water. I'll be back.
Okay.
I have light wall. Hold on. This is my Empire Reborn. I don't want that. Yeah. That's chip 1 is destroyed, and chip 2 is about to destroy my tongue, Oh. Wow. Hearts up.
I need keycard B.
Indeed.
Alright. My other world.
Oh! No, wait, that's not what I want.
Which needs vertical. Of some variety. Okay.
Meow. Very crunchy, Oh, blade orb knives.
Could you not lag out?
There's pink!
There we go. There. Soup is in go mode.
Yay, Ah, there's the other pink. Damn, All the nyas. All the pinks. Nope. I do have B. Fuck everything here. I don't have my tablet yet. Fuck. Oof, old coat. I'm sorry.
Better than nothing.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
but
back.
do you have nothing?
No.
Then it's meh.
Literally in the description of the item.
I'm alive.
Oh,
That's from the live album.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
That's all right.
Gun!
Gun!
I'll defeat you with the power of friendship and this gun I found.
This gun I found. Sonic Adventure 2 said I'm tight. Said that shit was tight.
Wait, this is the one that has Enter Sandman. Technically, I don't have to do this.
You're pitiful, and you're gay!
I'm gonna... Cause I'm not gonna...
Magic glove
Use
for
release.
All right.
whoever. Magic glove for Sonic. Yes.
Yeah.
Sonic, right? Yeah. Mm.
Just
Definitely
a few
Sonic.
centimeters off.
It's detransitioned Sonic.
That was
Um,
so.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this about Sonic Adventure 2. Magic gloves are like fucking
Thank you.
useless.
Oh, thank you for Jin Inferno. Ah.
I used to do this shit without the Lost Child missions, so like half of the upgrade items were useless until now.
I don't have C.
Sunglasses. What?
Fuck. I don't have C. I think I'm gonna search for my. No, I don't need it. Do I?
Nah, keycard C only unlocks like 2 checks.
All right. Warp shard. Let's go. Oh. Okay. And I can't go here. I still have one more thing in the past to clear. And oh, I have pink, so I can go there. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna see what's in the pink.
So I just need all 3 gears in Waffle, and then I'm in go mode in both games.
Oh shit! Damn.
And all my gears are in my own games.
All right. Let me see. Orb.
Gear 1 is in Royal Tower Journal. I just wait. Oh. Okay.
Oh.
I have to go beat Avana in Soup? What? Did I not do that?
All right. So it's not one worth going to.
Okay.
Damn, Waffle's having all kinds of little beefs.
Camera's frozen? Great.
Love that.
Love it when it does that.
Oh, that's right. I have keycard A. I can do this. I have keycard A. That means I can do this.
There we go. And that's fixed. Yes. Okay.
I'm still missing 2 gears, which is annoying, but. Oh, come on!
Courtyard floor secret? Ugh. So I need my Oculus ring?
All right. Can't complain.
No, I have my Oculus ring. Okay. Genza. Okay. Oh, it's in the pink room. That's where it is. Okay.
Bonk.
So go do those 2
Archipelago.
things,
Archipelago. That's what we're
and
doing.
then go do Daddy's Tower in my other game.
Archipelago, everybody. Whee!
Archipelago.
I get 1 and 2 here. Sacred Wall.
Mission Street 2.
Oh, alchemy tools.
Wait, no, I don't have Oculus ring.
Mission Street 2.
Oh, it's in the other game that I need the secret, though. I think.
Oh,
I'm
wait.
very confused. Oh, I'm playing Soup, aren't I?
Meow.
Oh, fuck.
Yes. Okay. That's
What's
why
up?
I'm confused.
The last gate didn't have Mission Street, so you're both going to finish everything before I do. Fuck. there's one more set of stages that's locked off until you get like all the emblems, basically.
Oh.
So I need 11 emblems to actually do Cannon's Core, and it's Hammer Glove. So like, there might be a skip that I'm unaware of, but I don't know how to do that one.
Anyway, enjoy some whole bunch of stuffs.
Oh, Blood Orb is plus.
Nice.
All right. Well, I can at least do this skip, so I can feel better about myself. Archie P. Lug. I don't think that was his name. I don't think that was the creator of Archipelago.
Ow.
Archie P. Lug. The creator of Arcu.
Arcu.
The Lego. Arcu Plijo. The bright side is we could still be hunting down all my emeralds. That last multi-world I did too. All of my chaos emeralds except for 2, I think, were in my world, and they were locked behind the last gate, like this one is now. Yeah. So at least this one went by quickly.
Oh yeah, I got
most of my other items beforehand.
I do have my gas mask.
All right, now I have Oculus Ring in both games.
My save. Oh wait. Oh, can't do that.
There's the Beaky card.
Most.
Is that it? I think that's all I need in this game.
Absolutely the most satisfying use of the sash, just going up the elevator shaft.
Yeah.
I'm on Ma, so.
Here we go.
Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Yep, I found all the hints. Okay. Hey, thank you for the follow.
Nice. That's cheesy.
Thanks for the follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I can now go to the future castle.
Future castle.
Use items. Warp shard. Yep. Use it. Go back to future or present. There it goes. Meow. Actually, what am I up to? I should be able to get another 2 hints now. Yeah. Ah.
Nothing left in mine though. Oh no, there we go. Weapons bed 5.
Here we go.
I think I have weapons bed. Let me check.
Both my other gears are in your world.
Oh, weapons bed and 8 quarters 1. Okay.
Oh, great.
Hard enough.
Wait. Yeah, my Sandman is underwater. Cool. I hate that. I specifically have that less likely to happen in my YAML, and it still happened.
I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna park myself here, get myself in go mode in my other game, and then do both of those fights.
I am currently working on 8 quarters 1. I can do weapons bed. I think I can do... Yeah, I can do weapons bed. I should be able to do all the weapons bed.
Thank you.
That'll take a while though. Weapons bed 5 is a while out.
And gear 3, and I have to beat Genza. This one, right? Yes, I do have to beat Genza. Okay.
Also, once I'm done, I gotta go back to other present stuff.
Thanks for stopping by. Have a good sleepy.
Yes.
Yep. Have a
Good night,
night.
JZ.
We're gonna need the fucking... Oh, never mind. They didn't say good luck. Well, I guess we're fucked now. I really wish this beetle would leave me alone.
Oh yes, thank you for the more hydrate. Ow! Meow, thank you. Oh damn. Oh, Chaos Horn. Nice, extra defense and fortitude, let's go.
Let's go. Fortitude. Let's fucking go.
Close.
Oh, metal
Posture
wristband
check.
gives me some. Gives me some,
Unshredded thyself.
There's
Ah,
the
there's
card.
C. I can do that other boss fight now. Whoa! I died.
Me when I die.
One more left.
I was not I did not even realize where I was. Alright, well in that case.
Me when I die blindfolded.
Well, I still gotta defeat the Maw. I apparently hadn't saved after fighting the Maw.
I actually
That's
did drink
okay.
a little bit of water on that hydrate redeem. I actually did. I did. I swear.
It's already done. It's already beaten anyway.
Joy to the world.
I just forgot to save after it.
is come. The Lord, the Lord, the Lord.
So let me go and hit the save.
Alright, we are in go mode in both of our games.
Nice. Now I will use my freaking warp shard.
I fucking knew, and I said it not to jinx it. I avoided saying it so I wouldn't jinx it. I knew when everyone else's seeds started shitty and mine started fucking amazing, that something would go terribly fucking wrong at the end and make me finish last. But I didn't say it. So jinxing
Yep.
isn't real. Jinxing isn't real. I proved it scientifically.
That, and then I've got that fight. I'm gonna take care of the fight first. No.
Broken time.
And now you've broken time.
I
What
can't.
is this thing?
I can't.
Come on, let me in.
Oh, it's a don't say it, don't think it kind of thing? Well, then what's the point of a jinx? That's stupid. God fucked up when he made jinxing.
When you made Jinx the Pokemon.
I
God
made
didn't
Jinx
make that
the
thing.
League of Legends character?
God made Jinx a League of Legends character. God did not make the Pokemon.
That Jinx is without a god.
Ah, nice, the Velician crown. That's good.
Where the fuck is this thing? Oh, it's over here.
Shoot, I got it.
I don't
Thanks,
practice
Silver.
light wall skip in either of my games. It's the first one I don't have light wall, and the second one I don't have hairpin.
So unfortunately that was... Oh, there's gear 2, thank you.
It's all too easy.
Because once I get both my all my gears, I'm in go mode 2.
I'm on my way to weapons bed.
Because I have to
don't
go
tell me I don't
and...
have weapons bed. Okay.
So I have to go... Yeah, because I have to go, do the patricide. And then
Sweet.
I got a time spin. Actually, no, I don't need to patricide. I just need to go to the... Once I have that other gear, I'm in go mode. I just hit the warp to go pre-patricide.
So it turns out I didn't do any weapons bed yet, so I'm on weapons bed 1 now.
You're fine. I still have to,
I
still
do
have to
everything
get there.
but...
I still have to
Okay.
get there. Don't worry.
I could have been super greedy there. We're fine.
Got my first no wall or sash seed last night. Ew.
Ooh.
Ew. Your time got fucking spun.
Another Ramblom.
I have 69 of those now. Ha 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 ha. That's so fucking
Nice.
funny.
All right. Fuck! Folks ready for a release?
Yeah.
Yep, go for it.
Okay.
I also did manual collect, but now that I think about it, I think I should just put it on automatic.
That was it? Damn.
Oh, that might be actually... Shit, is that enough emblems for me? That's either enough emblems for me or really close.
20 concussions. That's a lot for me.
I was gonna say, that's a lot for Waffle, but that's good.
Oh yeah.
I love all the traps in the final cutscene now. It's just full of bees and meteor sparrows.
Linnaeus, you're back. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, one of the big reasons I love the blood orb because it negates the shield on those guys.
Yeah.
It's like shield? Nah, you don't got no shield. Ooh. Not good against these though. Oh, I have a second chaos. Second chaos horn. Fuck yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Let's go second chaos horn. I don't need luck. Like no, I literally don't need luck in this game. Fuck y'all.
This fight sucks underwater.
Which fight?
Princess Aelana.
Ah.
And I didn't get Shadow Seal. Okay.
Ooh.
That was too close.
My favorite thing to do with blood orb is to throw it behind you and then dash away, so they chase behind you and become swirling orbs of death. Ugh. Oh shit! The collect makes it to where you can do stages that are after whatever it collected, so I can skip to weapons bed 5 now.
Oh, nice.
I think that's faster than just being in the game.
There's another emblem anyway.
Please stop lagging. There we go.
Please. I have enough now, I think, to go beat my game, but Cannon's Core takes like 6 minutes when you're good at it. So I'm just gonna go do I'm just gonna do a weapons bed 5 for you.
Okay.
And then I'll go do my shit.
There we go.
It is a... Oh, it's jerky. I don't even need to fight that boss. Good. Good! I don't need to fight that fucker. I'm going to try and get to the Timespinner, but I can't until I... Okay, so I gotta break the thing. I still haven't found my tablet.
Damn.
Ah, there it is!
Yep.
Ah. That puts me at over 80 emblems, so I think I can, probably beat this pretty soon.
And 5 concussions on that side. All right.
Damn.
Oh, I already have... I don't need that one because it was one of yours that you released. How close are you to releasing?
I just did.
Oh, that was it?
Yep.
Damn.
Okay, I don't have any checks down there anymore now.
I think I'm almost done with Weapons Bed 5. The stage really isn't that long, it's just obnoxious.
Nice, more health. What do I need? So I'm gonna ignore that boss since it's my jerky. And I don't need jerky. Jerky? No, what's over here? Oh, that, okay.
Back my asyncs. See if there's anything I can do in either of these. Gear 3. And I have Water Mask. Alright, I can do some stuff here.
What are you doing in the big async?
I have 2 Timespinners, a Mario 64, a Super Mario World, and my first time ever doing Link's Awakening.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good. I need that.
Ducky suggested a Dork congregation async, and I don't think I want to do the...
It is surprising amount of work to set up and organize too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I want to do the... Alright, here we go.
Oh,
We'll
okay,
see
right.
If I can beat my seed.
That was too close.
There it is.
And like, everyone is free to join the one in Mistaken's Discord for the next one as well.
For what, the async?
Yep.
That was,
I just
that
don't-
was my plan.
I don't like the concept of asyncs for me. Like, just for myself.
That's fine.
I'll try one day just to see, but I don't know. It's a fun way to like practice the games that you run though.
Yep.
Try out new settings with no pressure.
Yeah.
And here we go. I can go and, once I go in and back, no? Yes.
Do all the chow checks.
Which one do I want to do? Let's do Volterralis so I can use my Empire Orb.
Wait, where's the warp? Oh, it's... How did I...
Because if I do, oh, right, I forgot about this.
This is good music, yeah. I love the music shuffler.
I guess I don't need the web trackers anymore.
And done.
Just those games are done.
Yep. And
won?
time is broken.
Oh, you beat time. Okay.
Time is broken. Yep, that means I'm all set to go to the pyramid and go straight in because I already have vertical movement. I have everything, yep. So I
I'm
literally-
in Cannon's Core now, so... Oh wait, nope. I still need hammer gloves. I forgot.
Don't worry,
Go get them.
I'm literally going straight to the last boss right now.
I mean, that doesn't affect me. I have so many hit points now, but like, I don't need anything. Mission Street 2, that's what it is. Okay, just making sure. It was an upgrade or something. I forget this shit pretty easily if it's stuff I need for myself. Sometimes I forget it.
Up I go.
I forget it if it's a lot of people need shit from my world at once, and I forget it if it's something that like I need. Like I'll remember what it is, but I won't remember like where it is exactly.
I love that Timespinner now highlights on the map where stuff is hinted for. So
Yeah,
nice.
the Timespinner map is really good for shit like that.
What the fuck is that? I don't think I've seen that before. Or maybe I did? I don't know.
forgot how obnoxious this mission is. Virtue's definitely going to finish before I do.
Oh shit! Fuck! I meant to hit pause so I could get some health on me, but I hit time freeze instead, which of course doesn't affect most things.
Damn.
This. I don't think Blood Orb is plus. No, it is not plus. Right, okay. You need to check that part of the menu. Charge beam for mistaken. I need to write these down.
Just gotta get some health items.
I sent someone a key as well. Pie, small key to Turtle Rock.
It's a Turtle Rock. Fucking... This is like one of the worst 100 rings missions in the entire fucking game. It makes so much sense that my last item I need to go mode would be here. Fucking hate this. Like shit just drops down on you. It's fucking crazy.
Please don't kill me, eels. Okay.
So what the fuck? Oh my god.
It's okay, I'm
Oh
about
my
to finish.
God.
I'm about to finish!
That doesn't change the fact that a fucking platform I don't think I've ever seen before in my life just fucking wrecked my shit. Ugh, 5 more rings. If nothing more bullshit happens, 5 more. At least I get to listen to the instrumental of Big the Cat's theme from Sonic Adventure 1. I love a good slide guitar while I'm trying to not get fucked over by falling debris.
Very good.
Yeah, I know about falling debris. I'm in the middle of it right now.
Select a stage.
Yeah? Alright, I got hammer gloves. I'm finally go mode. Jesus Christ.
System alert. System alert. The intruder has reached the system area.
Where is it? Oh, it's up here.
Alright, Tails. I can see that I will have to teach you how to get to the cannons corridor.
Oh, what? I did it again. I died. Oof, indeed.
You're pitiful.
It's okay.
and
Thankfully, the
gay.
save is right outside the boss room, so.
That's like the
Waffle
4th
with
time
milk.
people have been fucking redeeming random sound bites, and it's been "you're pitiful" and "you're gay" like 5 times. Why do you hate me, Chad? No, it was random a few times. Ducky did put one in on purpose, that's true.
You're pitiful. And you're gay.
Cool. You need to destroy it. Oh my god, no. No! No! I'm being over dramatic, don't worry about it. There's not like something crawling up my leg in real life or anything. I'm just getting Shrek'd left and right.
There it is. phase 1 is done. Well, technically phases 1 and 2.
I heard you was talking shit by putting it in C tier, so now it'll haunt you. Yeah, put it in C tier because it was originally in D, and that made Julia sad. And I was like, I guess it is kind of funny, so I put it in C. It was originally in fucking D. Oh, that was not a good thing to do. Cool. Oh, that was even worse thing to do. That was damage skipping this. I don't fucking care right now. Whatever.
Fucked it up.
Oh, I'm gonna die. Cool. They really didn't put in anything for this. You just die? Holy shit. Jesus, Sonic Adventure 2.
I have no vertical. Can I do this fight?
Pitiful being in C tier is the greatest injustice since that Luxord was bad. It's not that big a deal. It's not Luxord bad. Come on.
Done.
Oh, GG.
G?
But I was this close to finishing before you. Just give me like 5 more minutes. Just fuck around for a little longer. Maybe go beat a side boss. I might have some cool shit to practice.
Anyway, there you go.
Cool.
Ah.
How was your first Timespinner AP seed?
Actually really fun. So,
Nice.
It's a good one.
yeah.
Mhm. And easy to set up.
Oh yeah.
Super fucking easy to set up.
I mean, to set up, it's easy enough, yeah. To get it started, even on... Like, to get it set up is easy. To get it running is even easier.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Link to the Past, where setting it up is easy as heck too, but running it, yeah, then you gotta get the Luas and the so much stuff.
Unlike Super Mario 64, which is like the easiest.
Yeah, totally. It's the most simplest thing. I did it in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that didn't help me at all. That thing I just did. So that's pretty
Rip.
cool. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oof. That was only 2 hours.
Like, I'm whining about mine, but like, again, like I said earlier, if this were Emerald Hunt, it probably would have went like way worse.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know what it is. Like, okay, Sat does Emerald Hunt when he does this, and his reasoning for it makes so much sense. However, every time I have done Emerald Hunt, it's been a fucking disaster.
And yeah, in an ideal world, Timespinner's AP would be the ideal.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if upping the progression balancing would help in an Emerald Hunt. So there are
I mean,
progression
yeah, but-
items. So
But then, like, would that make it too short? I don't know.
I mean, it's a variable number. You can adjust it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll try that next time I do Emerald Hunt, which in my YAML folder is called Emerald Cunt because I'm very smart and funny.
Pokedex for Kimmy and Kevin 8 for Ratlin.
Your Hollow Knights
Yeah.
is also super simple, is it?
No, it's not.
I was going to say, I was like,
That's
I've heard that's not true.
It's not that bad. Like, you have to get the mod loader up and running, but...
no. Ducky was replying to you saying how easy it was to install SM64.
Oh, okay. I mean, so, I don't know. Any multi-world that I want to run cannot be as fucking much of a depressing pain in the ass as Super 64 was, I guess, is the main takeaway.
That's fair.
So, like, yeah. I'll probably do Hollow Knight one day. It's on my wheel of games that I need to finish vanilla that are also in AP.
E. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh. So I can pull up your thing real quick.
Three seeds released and none of them had air necklace? Shit. I didn't realize that.
What?
Honey the cat's gonna die. There's no air necklace. I figured someone else just had it. I never hinted for it or anything, because you technically don't need it.
Fair.
But yeah, Honey's gonna die at the end of the story. Sorry.
Understandable.
Okay, there we go.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Oh shit, speaking of, god damn it. Oh my god, no, not the C2. I thought this would be different. Everybody, say goodbye to Big. Bye, Big.
Bye, Big the cat.
Bye, Big.
What the hell? What is he doing there?
Escaping with all his might. Bye. Also, yeah, rest in peace, Honey the cat, but we don't know if she's dead yet. But she's probably dead. I still really enjoy that the person who made the Honey the Cat mod didn't make a voice pack, because apparently those like aren't the easiest to do. Which I guess
They
makes
really
sense.
aren't.
So like Blaze's voice is Blaze's full like Laura Bailey ass voice, but Honey's is just like Knuckles. So Honey's fucking trans as fuck.
Well, yeah, that's because it's because Blaze has voice lines from other games, so
Yeah, Honey don't know shit. No, I've heard in general they're hard to make. I don't know why, but like I guess it's a lot to think about and shit. I don't know.
I mean, oh, okay, I'm good.
There should be a mod that turns Eggman into Big the Cat. Well, see, here's the thing. We tried that with Omega, and it breaks the game. So I don't know how I feel about that.
I wonder if it's because Eggman and his robot are separate models.
It's because they didn't program in an animation for that Omega mod when you get an upgrade.
Oh, okay, so it is the mod itself.
So when you get an upgrade, it crashes.
Rip.
Speaking of rip, poll time or prediction time.
First try or not?
Lizard first try. Submission period is 2 minutes. Do you think I will beat the lizard on the first try or fuck up and not do so? You have however many minutes. 2 minutes I said. I was playing this fucking totally not annoying song. Let's go. Actually, this song's fine. It's not that annoying.
Can you not jump out of here? Oh, you can. Okay.
Wait,
Beat the lizard or beef it on the lizard. beat or beef. I'm sure that'll be fine. For newcomers to my stream.
I don't like
Sick
that.
prediction. Beat or beef.
Nope.
Nope, don't like that.
I don't know, Ducky. Sorry, majority rules. I guess I'm not gonna make it that next time.
Streamception, here we go.
So that's everything I can do in logic except Canterin.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, fuck. Ah. This lizard's fucking up my shit. There we go. Or almost fucking up my shit.
Yeah, you got the lizard in the head.
Toki says the rest of you are cowards. It's
Wait,
just
what?
beef. She doesn't like that you took down her beat it or beef it idea.
Oh my gosh.
It's not just beef, it's both of them together.
I don't know about that. I don't see anything wrong with that. You gotta beat it to tenderize it. It's normal. It's all squishy and sweaty. When you beat it, then it's fun and good.
Ooh, is that second hit or is that third?
Alright, who's at Canterin? Ah, fuck, alright. Zarian at Canterin, and I'm on level 1.
Cool.
Oh wait, what am I doing? Why am I doing it like this? I should do it,
And I have no vertical. Alright.
Oh, I even have one. I even have one specifically for you two. How about that?
Well, what do you know about that?
Of course there's ads showing on these. Dippin' dots?
That's the Dippin' Dots.
I don't want my dots
Got it.
dipped.
That's why I gotta beat this lizard. He wants all the world's dots dipped.
And it's just a warp shard for Aaron.
Oh. Wasn't even anything. Wow.
Nope. Alright, check my other Timespinner game.
Rawr.
Meow.
Rawr.
I guess I should have a
this-
tablet. Does that give me
Yep.
anything?
This lizard is giving you the rars.
Actually, I just remembered, Rawr isn't from this. Rawr is from Billy Hatcher. The Billy Hatcher playthrough. I forgot about that.
Nothing I can do in this one.
Wow. Is that it for the giant lizard?
Maybe.
Or is he better?
Yeah, what's up? Fuck you. Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah.
Lizard be dead.
Hilly Badger in the United.
It's dead.
Get out, you ugly prototype.
Wait, what happened? Why is it going again? Oh, was it glitched? What happened?
I don't know.
Is it
Oh, the
doing it
poll?
again? Yeah, am I losing my mind?
You mean the poll?
Yes. Did it make it
No,
again?
it's
I don't know.
I don't
It's
know.
on my end, it says it's there again. Okay.
Yeah, I see that too. I see it too.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Well,
can't.
new prediction. New prediction.
vote on.
Ain't a lizard.
Oh no, that's not. That's the results of it.
It brought it up with a timer.
There, now that one has it.
I didn't mean to make. I just. Well, anyway. Cool. Cutscene. Wonderful. More cutscenes. We love that. We love that sort of thing here.
Now what? Do I want to do more async stuff?
Can you hear me, son? Shadow?
Is this the final? Like it says final hazard. This is the final battle. Or...
Ain't a lizard.
Oh.
That's what they should have put on the ticker, baby. Everybody loves anal lizard. Everyone. Ah, there we go. Sometimes the hit just doesn't fucking register. I've never understood that. I know I complain about this boss every scene, but like, also, do you see this shit?
This shit is pretty seeable. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, I think that's intentional.
Finally got up bed and immediately stubbed my toe. Oh no. I'm sorry. The other day, I rammed my fucking toe into my gamer chair so fucking, like, hard that, like, it left a, like, big-ass red mark. Like, I thought I cut it open for a second. Like, it was so scary. It hurt so fucking bad. It was my pinky toe. It was so bad.
Oh yeah, I've had that. I've ripped my toes a few times. I had
Like,
one,
open?
The
Jesus.
most recent one. Oh, I don't usually have it like ripped open, but usually I just have like a scrape on it. But this most recent one, it was really like a really deep scrape. It peeled back
Damn.
decent amount of stuff. Yeah, it was
funny.
very not fun.
That's some hardcore toe bashing.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Sonic, Shadow, everyone here is rooting for you. Good luck. And get in trouble.
Oh my god, it pushed me all the way fucking back. That's me, that's what I'm saying.
Also, Waffle,
God. Oh,
your
like, why
camera.
didn't Oh,
Waffle,
the
is
camera
it again?
broken?
Yeah.
All right, I need to tinker with that offline then.
Then I'll see your face.
Just you could just join me and Aiden in not having a camera anymore.
Yeah, I like it.
Out of the way.
Wait. That's fucking game. That's fucking game. Game
Lizard
gamers.
Game gamers, Lizard Boom.
Lizard boom, lizard boom.
Lizard Boom.
Anal keeps you running faster. Oh! Thanks for joining, Anal Lizard.
Must destroy all the evil the professor has created.
Let's do.
Not that
Well, I
one.
guess the release doesn't matter since, like, everybody's done. Yay!
Game.
Yes.
Yay!
Game.
Yay! I got the sunglasses. You need one. Those do one check. Hooray!
Nice.
The entire game, one check. There's the air necklace. There's the flame ring. Could have used Sonic's flame ring.
I beg of you.
Maria.
Give them a
Maria!
chance to be happy.
You silly child! I miss you so much.
Wait, what was it that I needed and you said was almost impossible because you needed every emblem almost?
The hammer gloves. You need them to open the metal boxes in Cannon's Core, as why they're a go mode item. If there's a way to skip that, I don't know how to do it yet. I found out you technically don't need bounce bracelet. It's just way easier with it.
Oh, I see. So that was what it was. Is that you were ready to go, except you didn't have that item, which you couldn't get because you needed a ton of emblems to get. Got it.
And yeah, because it was in a stage that was locked off in the one place where you need all the stages that are locked off past Cannon's Core, like past like having to get all those emblems.
Yep.
Nightmare shit. Absolute nightmare shit.
Yep.
Where is Shadow?
Where's Shadow? Well, just stand there saying nothing. Where the fuck is he?
Think that the professor created him, Shadow, to carry out the revenge on all those who live here on Earth?
Why is... Oh, that's... The tracker shows up. There we go. Okay.
That little girl is definitely Mephistopheles in disguise. Question: what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, from the video. It was a very, very poor CGI girl clasping her hands. It was very weird.
Okay.
It was very much in a non-human possessing a human body for the first time. What do I do with hands?
Did it together.
Cool.
What's next for you, Rouge? Off again
What's
to
next
find
for
those
you,
jewels
Rouge?
you love so much?
Maybe fucking
Nah,
going back to my place, my little echidna home.
For too little pay.
I sleep on an island in the sky.
Anyway, I've got something better than jewels.
I live in a giant bucket.
I think it'd be cooler if Knuckles lived in a giant bucket.
If you say so.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Doesn't even have a roof over his head. Dude probably smells like shit constantly.
What's the matter, Sonic?
You know, like wet dog stink with like a dog that's been out in the rain for like way too long.
Mm-hmm.
Knuckles probably smells like that, but way fucking worse.
He. Anyway.
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 Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog. I fucked up. How did I mispronounce Shadow? Jesus Christ. No, Sonic, don't worry about me. Just go through the door. It's the piano. It makes me sad. We're never gonna see Shadow again.
There's a Poke Flute.
And we have an Oddish at the Snorlax spot? Okay.
This thing is in the way. The townsfolk are stumped.
Yeah. No, I don't know what's up with your camera. It's frozen again. It's weird.
I like to get in the way.
Andy the
I do
Oddish.
it every day.
That's Oddish's musical number. That's Pokemon Blue the musical. It's Snorlax's theme.
Yep.
I'm Snorlax and I like getting in the way.
I just realized I never actually I never put up my tracker
Oh.
on my stream. I never put it up. Oops.
I'm gonna remember that. Actually, I should do that. Not the tracker. The if I ever do a Pokemon seed where I get Snorlax's, Andy's the new Snorlax name. I'm
Absolutely.
Snorlax, and I like getting in the way.
Where did it go? There it is. Oh, no, that's almost okay. Anyway. Oh, shrink it. There we go. So now we have everything on a nice bar, and then we say, "Hey, guess what? New window capture."
Death's
Oddish.
14. Total time is less than 2 hours?
Wait, I don't have a Pokedex, do I? Oh, no, I do. Okay.
That's my PB, I think.
Tracker.
Nice.
Huh. Who would have thunk?
Automatic. Window title. And no, it's good. And there it is. Put it right down. Oops, not quite there. Maybe I should make it should I make it smaller or should I?
Cool. Well, that was a good, weird, fucking unscheduled multi-world we
Multi-world,
did, friends.
It's very definitely fun.
I liked that. Well, what's everybody doing? Should I raid one of you or should I go find somebody?
And I don't really have anything else to do, so I'm good with you finding someone else.
I'm going to finish up my async checks here in Pokemon, and then probably call it, but that's probably like another 20 minutes to a half hour at least.
You got
All
it.
right. Let's just raid in there then.
All right.
We're doing it. All right. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yes,
We're gonna go
indeed.
raid Waffle.
The best Borderlands Tuesday so far.
Yes.
They're probably playing Borderlands without us. Can't confirm. Don't know. And as I say at the end of every stream, Metal Gear Raiden.